I'm really pleased to be here today with Paco Ollervides, who's with Green Leadership Trust to talk about equity and justice training for environmental organizations. So Paco, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm going to give you a little intro to the Stewardship Network, and then I'll let Paco take it away from there. As I said, I'm Lisa Brush with the Stewardship Network, and I'm with Paco Ollervides, who's the Executive Director of the Green Leadership Trust. The Stewardship Network is a 501c3 nonprofit with a mission to protect, equip, and mobilize people and organizations to care for land and water in their communities. We are capacity builders, providing the tools and resources and the backbone support to keep you all outside and working in your communities to care for land and water in your community. So we provide all kinds of different resources. We started 15, 20 years ago. We're a national and international award-winning organization. We have 30 different member communities around the Great Lakes and beyond. Really looking forward to working with you all to find additional ways that we can continue to support you as well. As I said, partnerships are the name of the game in the Stewardship Network. We work with all volunteer nonprofits to international NGOs, private businesses and consultants, private property owners and volunteers, academics and researchers, funders, you name it. We work with lots of different organizations and understand what it takes to make things work in your individual organizational culture as well. As I said, we're also all about collective impact. And so one of the things that we love to do is to share. Oftentimes it can feel kind of alone in the work that we do within our individual organizations or communities, and just to know that there's a large community out there doing this work, and we want to share the good work that we all do and support you in your individual work as well. We have our local member collaborative conservation communities, and if you're in Duluth, you're part of that. Lori's part of one. If you're here in Southeast Michigan, you have one. If you are in California, you have them. And they're, again, made up of all of the organizations and individuals who care for land and water in your community. And essentially, they do on-the-ground conservation actions, so invasive species management or prescribed fire, and then learning engagement in terms of teaching the community and partner organizations about the work to care for land and water and do ecosystem restoration. I want to thank you all online who are donors to the Stewardship Network. Your support enables us to broadcast these free online monthly webcasts each and every month. So also wanted to let you know that for a time now, we have a very generous donor who's made a $250,000 donation to us, who is challenging us to raise that. And so your donation will be matched dollar for dollar. So I would encourage you, if you've made a donation, to make another one. And if you haven't yet, be a donor to the Stewardship Network. $5, $500, $500,000. So we're looking forward and really pleased that that this generous donor has made this opportunity for us. As I said, again, I'm Lisa Brush with the Stewardship Network, and really pleased to be here today with Paco Ollervides, who's the Executive Director of the Green Leadership Trust. Paco, with that, I think I will turn it over to you, if that sounds good. I will bring your presentation up.
I have it. I share my screen if you want to just give me that.
Okay, great.
Please. Okay. Good afternoon. Good morning. You don't want to see my desk. Close this window. I apologize. That should be it now. Okay, please let me know if you can't see this.
Yep.
A PowerPoint presentation. Okay.
It's coming through.
Okay, so again, good afternoon. I assume maybe good morning if some people are from California, like Lisa said. The Stewardship Network is in more than one time zone. I am calling you from north central Ohio, original land of the Wyandot tribe, so not too far from most of you, since I know a majority are in the Michigan Great Lakes area. I'm honored to participate in this webcast. I have been following them for a while too. I've known Lisa and the Stewardship Network for close to a decade now, and I need to get better at my picture slides, but I'm very pleased that she has been at the helm of this network, the services they provide, and this opportunity to share with you a little bit of my journey and recommendations and how environmental organizations can uh, embrace the moment that right now it's imperative for us to be calling to this national cry for equity and justice in all of our actions. So I am a native from Mexico, Mexico City, and became a U.S. citizen 8 years ago. But today, as many of you will know, this topic is quite intense, quite varied, and there's a breadth of training resources out there, even more so currently with, like I said, the current environment of our country. So um, I want
Hey,
to
Paco,
establish a
this is, can I,
yes.
let me interrupt you for one quick sec. You have your little Adobe Connect window is also showing on your screen. I don't know if you can minimize that. Do you see that? There we go. I think that's it.
Sorry.
Awesome. Wonderful.
Uh,
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt. Yep.
no, no problem. I just want to establish a baseline of information for all of us. So, um, to those that are advanced in DEIJ, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, um, bear with us as we just try and get all of us to speed on what would be the tipping, the tip of the iceberg for this participation. I want us to unpack a few of our biases, blind spots, as they relate to anti racism in the environmental sector. Now, people sometimes react with the word racism, but in essence, racism is a practice that we, and I hope most of this audience is fighting to reverse. That's why it's called an anti racism. I'm not making allusions that any of you are racist. I don't even know most of you. So I cannot make that assumption. We will explore some of our individual and collective equity journeys. I will share some tools to advance your inclusive agendas and resources to building a more diverse organization. So, again, feel free to use the chat function, like Lisa has mentioned. I won't be able to see it, but Lisa and Rob are helping there in case a question comes up or a need for clarification. I am definitely willing to help out and to pause my presentation. I also want to acknowledge my funders are the Packard Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Kresge Foundation, and just last week, the Hewlett Foundation offered us to triple our ask from them. So we're very happy that our ask was met in triple, that we'll continue our work with Green Leadership Trust. This organization has only been in existence for 8 years, and I'm actually their first paid executive director for the past 15 months. Um, uh, I see this slide and I think I need to change sweaters eventually or get another professional picture. But that's the one I have, and it is pretty close to what I look right now. It's about 6 months old, but I've been doing several podcasts for several organizations out there, several outlets. Actually, one more recent and close to you was Planet Detroit. Uh, I was quoted in some articles there. Like I said, everybody's talking about this right now. But Green Leadership Trust in 2012 emerged from a few of the individuals on this picture on the right talking about the fact that they only made up about 9% of the current of the makeup of boards, environmental nonprofits. That was in 2012. After 8 years of voluntary work and me as a first paid staff in the past 15 months, this percentage is now 11. And this information comes from a fellow Michigan University, Dr. Lucita Taylor. Some of you may be aware of her work. That actually also spearheaded another organization that we are often confused with, called Green 2.0. So Green 2.0 is the outward-facing pressure point for increasing diversity in boards. Outward-facing, as in they use GuideStar, they use reports. We are the inside game. My members are board members, of these boards. And by default, they operate in a different sense. So we are not as outward facing. People don't know us that much, and yet we have probably even more influence because, as you know, a board member has a lot of say in the strategic and large picture thinking of an organization. So these individuals and a few others got together in 2012, and we now have several areas that we work on. Equity. We sent a letter for the DNC just last week about some omissions to their script on divestment from fossil fuel industries, Black Lives Matter statements. The burning incident in New York actually was one of our members, Chris Cooper, that got affected by that after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico 2 years ago, with the water crisis in Flint. All of these individuals, we put together letters to recommend on how environmental organizations can act. But that's the background of what I do. And I do this because I have this wealth of experience with individuals such as these, that we match positions in boards, that we diversify your own board, but not just that checklist tokenism of now I have a brown or black person in my group. We really focus on the culture of the organization. And as we start this journey, a colleague of mine, Heather Berthard, put together this, I call it the rhombus of thought, where on the bottom left you can see your own awareness, your internal and individual focus on any perspective. In this case, we'll talk about racism. It is all always continuous opportunity for learning. But as you move to the top left, now you're working through your organization. So after you have your own self-awareness, then you start influencing the inside of your organization. On the bottom right, you actually your awareness translates to how you interact with other people. So not just the organization, but colleagues, peers, even relatives. And I say even because in Ohio, I have very good friends and family members that are very, very different in opinion on racism and on political views. So the way we interact with them, the way we listen, and the way we're open to different points of view. And finally, the most advanced sort of exercise that you can do with this rhombus is those external relationships, how your organization translates to working with the community, translates to those cooperations that Lisa was alluding to, that everybody should be having. Of course, we cannot act alone. So for me, I think the self-awareness, the individual journey is the easiest, since you don't need to talk to anybody else. You just need to create your own space. You have to do your own reflecting. And I actually, yesterday, I joined a challenge, a 21-day challenge, for example, on how to be anti-racist. So every day I get a reminder, have you done this? And my first assignment was to read Congressman Lewis' last letter before his departure on July 17th. And it's very, very good. It's published in the New York Times. So I'm just learning. I am constantly learning on what I do. So I invite each of you, and Rob, if we can pop the poll. This is from another colleague of mine, Marcelo Bonta, and it is a continuum. If you can answer, please, the poll, where do you feel you are on this continuum, this journey of learning about racism? Okay, are you at the early stages where you're just beginning to see or desire change? Are you in the secondary stage of getting information, reading things? Are you now putting those new learnings into skill building approaches, practices? Are you now changing your behavior? And again, this is your individual, not your organization. As we move to the right, developing agency, now you're understanding, now you're expanding, now you're starting actually to influence others, and eventually you're a change agent, right? You possibly impact those within you and beyond. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just I wanted through this poll to kind of like gauge how many folks we have, and I assume we're going to have all over the map. But can you share, Rob, what people are answering? Or Lisa?
Yes, Paco, I think now that folks can see the answer to that poll. Can you
Yeah,
see it,
we'll give it
Paco?
a few more seconds.
That's great.
I cannot see it because I'm sharing my screen, but if you can tell me what you're
Oh,
seeing.
you're sharing your screen. Yeah. So great. Let me that's right. So there's building my skills, gaining knowledge, making it stick, building my skills, gaining knowledge, becoming a change agent, gaining knowledge, developing agency, building my skills, making it stick, gaining
Okay.
knowledge, building my skills.
Okay. So it seems like building my skills
Yeah,
was
so it's great. So and it
over
is,
already.
and one of the things that, as I've talked about this with different people, really echoing what Paco's saying is it's a journey, right? And whether you're new to it and building your skills or becoming a change agent, it's an important journey that we all take on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely, as you're building your skills, the amount of resources out there, especially of course with the internet, um, it's it's even too much. I thought of creating a page of resources for each of you, but not for you, but for this presentation. But one thing that I want to just attract your attention, since I assume most of you are white counterpart, I'm assuming, is literature and readings about white supremacy culture. Again, not a negative connotation, just an established fact of Western thinking as opposed to Eastern or Native American. So there is, and not opposed, but just different. Um, the one takeaway that I want to say is when you're now moving from the individual to the organization, when you're thinking of growing, of recruiting, of working with people, this mindset helps me to think about it as a transformational relationship and not a transactional relationship. It's not what am I gaining from this and what am I getting from me. It's more of how am I becoming a better person. So again, I do most of my activities with an equity lens. I think holistically, how is this fair? How is this um, overall supportive of my journey and my organization? So again, I always emphasize to avoid tokenisms, those checking the boxes. You don't want to do diversity just for diversity's sake. And actually, diversity is now becoming not a very used term amongst my peer of networks. It is more about how is this equitable? How is this just? How is this inclusive? So, just really quickly, my journey started in Mexico, of course, but I enjoyed the privileges of a white upper middle class person, even though my skin tone is not white. I do have two brothers. They're both taller than me. One of them is fair skinned. I did go to private schooling. And I did not look like the stereotypical Mexican with less of a height and darker skin, the more indigenous Mexicans. So I experienced some white privilege. Then I came to America and I was completely Hispanic. My accent was strong enough that people knew, and yet I still faced macroaggressions in terms of you can't be speaking English because you come from Mexico, or how come? And I had to like prove to people that I was from Mexico. So little things like that. Um, Everybody's journey is different, but I just wanted you to know a little bit about me, and then point out to this very good piece of work on dismantling racism. Um, it talks about these characteristics of this white supremacy culture I mentioned, which, by the way, there's antidotes or different ways of doing everything of this type. And I still falter on that sense of urgency, on that worship of the written word. Case in point, we have a PowerPoint. You're reading things. Other people prefer the oral tradition, right? And so as you move through your self-awareness and you start seeing maybe some of these patterns as they move into organization, is it power hoarding? Are you collaborating? Are you involving people since the beginning and not being individualistic? Each of these can be unpacked, but definitely a worth reading, and not too intense. Um, Now, I know that this is not a video call, so I can't read body language for folks. And I know we have Zoom fatigue, but just in case, I wanted to share a few of the things that I've been doing in my journey. Okay, um, I have moved from my curiosity and my personal quest to know more about social justice, environmental justice, to doing my first training about 4 years, 5 years ago with Race Forward, a group that is very, very famous for doing trainings. Then network weaving, where I actually met Lisa. Storytelling for environmental leaders, leading from within with Institute of Conservation Leadership, diversity equity sub networks, community organizing, and family issues. Starting to talk to a lot of people, mostly non-white, and yet, for example, Lisa, Rob, prime examples, incredible white allies. But I started moving into circles that I actually typically was not that involved. Um, so this 4 Zoom screenshots are actually from the People's Global Majority of the Outdoors, PGM1, Nature and the Environment. These are mostly millennials, and they are a very large group. They've been in operation now for 4 years. Their annual conference was canceled this year, but they're the up and coming generation of America, not just of the environment. Um, then my organization, not so many millennials in my organization. This is some of my members of Green Leadership Trust. And I have had the blessing of knowing these folks that have been doing this for 2, 3, even 4 decades. Some of them, for example, that gentleman in the top center with the black suit, Aaron Mayer, the first African American board president of Sierra Club. Down in the front, Michael Galopter with the checkered shirt, the first environmental justice thesis, PhD thesis. So some of these individuals have definitely become my mentors, and they are the ones that we're talking about. Hey, we're only 9% in 2012. Let's grow. And they actually commissioned Dr. Taylor to do that report that I was talking about. But your organization can start somewhere in the middle. These are some recommendations. I want you to take away some things. You can do a diversity, equity, justice audit. Figure out how many programs are focused on those aspects. How many programs do question those things? Are we addressing the right people? Or do we have the right people on the table? One very easy thing is that if you're thinking of going on a journey of diversifying your organization, is to create a committee. That is basic, very basic. And that committee then can create plans, right, for policies, for recruitment, and such activities. We have best practices library. That on the top is a title of one of our works, which I'm actually going to go into a little bit more detail later. Board-led best practices for diversity, inclusion, and equity in environmental organizations. This document is now, I would say, 6 years old, and yet it's very relevant, and even more relevant right now. So if you want to reach out to me later, I do have it's password protected through our website, but again, it's also for public consumption. When your committee is more and more established, you can actually create and produce DEIJ statements, such as many groups did with the upsurge of Black Lives Matter in the past weeks. And then, of course, you also have to think about budget allocation. A rule of thumb amongst the people of color donors is that they support organizations that can prove that their budget, at least 30% of their budget, is being dedicated to minority or disadvantaged communities. At least 30% of your budget should be as such. I hope that is clear. Moving on, more best practices. I organized this monthly member call. In the bottom right, actually, that was just yesterday. It's the second Tuesday of every month at 3:30. These are Green Leadership Trust members, which we're at 101 currently. It's an opportunity again for peers to learn, peers to mentor, share successes, obstacles, make announcements. We have amazing guest speakers, discussions. We share strategies, and most importantly, also, well, not most important, but also very critical, is we have board opportunities. For example, well, I don't need to go into detail on all these Hollywood Square, but there's also folks that are invited to provide a board pitch and say, hey, I have this opportunity, or an upper management position. So we're building that pipeline of leadership. Diversity is not an easy sell for a lot of people. Bottom left is that article with Planet Detroit. But bottom right, I just stumbled upon that last week. I hope it's fake news. I don't know. I know that when people were signing in, some are government employees. I don't know how much of this is. The backstory is that it seemed that diversity training such as this, for example, or something more developed than just a webcast, to some people seemed like it was counterproductive. I have a hard time with words because I believe so the opposite of it. But in any way, through the chat function, I would like to hear what each of you think strategically or empirically or ethically, diversity is important for you, for why basically you joined this webcast. Each organization has to develop its own indigenously held understanding, why they are embracing diversity and what they can do, right? You strategically, of course, it may advance your mission. Empirically, you may already be doing it, right? You may already have a need to improve your clout on certain demographics. Even strategically, it may help you for fundraising. And of course, ethically, what does your board dictate? What do you think should be done in terms of balancing and serving people that are, in a sense, part of the natural world? How do you leverage the social and cultural capital? I'm wondering again, Lisa, since I'm sharing my screen, if people are sharing some of their strategic, empirical, or ethical reasons for diversity.
Yep, that's great, Paco, and it's interesting. There are a couple different questions. One around, when you're seeing organizational change and you're working with different organizations, what do you see? Do you see it more successful from top down or bottom up? So a little bit about that. And then it's also, for me, it's so interesting in terms of diversity, in terms of the environmental work that we do, because we know how much biodiversity has resilience. And so the idea that as Megan said, she's the only person of color in her program, and it's exhausting and unproductive to continuously advocate for a diverse organization alone. And so who is the voice for that advocacy for diversity? And again, Amanda says we can't reach our full potential without including all perspectives, and we have a moral obligation to be inclusive. And as Abby says, diversity and very much inclusion is important because different perspectives allow for more effective problem solving and resilient solutions. And we see that in the Stewardship Network. That's one of the things that I love about the work that we do, is really having both new and decades old voices in that dialogue. And as Patty says, we need diversity for different viewpoints. And Lisa says it's the right thing to do, just plain and simple. And so, and then also the question
on the ethical part,
yeah, exactly, and how we can't reach our full perspective, our full potential. And as Carrie says, diversity is the basis of all life on Earth, and our organization protects natural land and water for diversity. Having a diverse board and membership and constituency gives our work a richness. It gives it diverse ideas and grows our humanness. And I just love that we can put people diversity. We can just stack that right on top of our environmental and biodiversity. And so, Sarah, again, sorry that you're having trouble with sound. As Rob said, it's coming through loud and clear, and it does sometimes depend on people's just internet connections. I heard somebody posting, a friend was saying that their kids who are doing online are saying, hey, can you guys stop using the internet so much because you're using up my bandwidth and my internet's getting glitchy. So yes, the recording is coming through loud and clear. So you will have that. And Sigrid says, I'm a research professor of a university in a predominantly white area, drawing students from predominantly white region, and need diversity in my program, natural resources, and across our engineering for sure. A more diverse, equitable, and inclusive Great Lakes Commission will contribute to a stronger and more resilient Great Lakes basin. So, yeah, a lot of people really thinking, and then some of the questions around how do you begin to be an advocate for that, and how do you begin to also call out if you have been silent in these incidents, and really be a white ally so that you don't have to feel alone and exhausted in that work, and really stepping up. So I think it is really important.
Well, thank you. So that question about is it more effective top down or bottom up is going again back to the white supremacy culture, where it seems like there's a lot of hierarchy in decisions. As we know, currently most of our organizations, it's the final say is the president, executive director. However, the example is that some major green groups, some major environmental organizations have actually created what is known as affinity groups, and they have pressured their leadership to change things. So I've seen both instances. Traditionally, you do have to have a champion if that champion is in a position of decision making rather than a lower staff or an intern. Um, so it's just a matter of not acting alone. To Megan's comment of being the only person, yes, most of my Greenleadership Trust members were the first of their race or their age in an environmental board. Sometimes the only ones. So and I often refer to them as the most effective and brave squeaky wheels in the board. They're the people that do question things. They're the people that do bring it because they bring it from their own perspective. Now it is exhausting because you're the one that's only bringing these things, but slowly you're getting those allies, like Lisa alluded to. Also, sometimes referred to as co-conspirators. So eventually, you're not the only one because even people that are not people of color are also getting it. But it is a slow process. So in our best practices publication, we have 9 items on how to diversify your culture. These screenshots are from actually my former work, River Network, but the meetings actually happened last month. Of course, COVID-19, much more Zoom calls. But we started back in 2016 in Atlanta, of all places, in the sense of we were having our national conference, River Rally in Atlanta in 2016, and we created a people of color gathering. 2016. Bear in mind how much has changed since then, right? Well, um, we assembled. There was 500 people in our attendees, but only about 30 were people of color, and that's again historically. Like the gentleman mentioned in their School of Natural Resources, historically the environmental movement has been white. So that is something that we just have to recognize and just have to move forward because no longer is history going to be like that. If you actually do the polls, the the number one race that is bound to act, donate, and care about the environment are Hispanics right now. Believe it or not, even donate. Um, so just take that in mind. Again, the how is first you have to get a group of people, bring it up to your institution, show commitment, be intentional, right? Then start articulating some goals, some major milestones. Are we gonna hire more people? Are we going to create a committee? Are we going to create a statement? And I already had mentioned this before. You have to have a formal structure, some structure of leadership where these conversations are brought up and where these conversations have some bearing. It can't just be gossip. It can't just be backdoor talking or channeling. It really has to be open, transparent, fluid. It has. I like another saying: we move at the speed of trust. So you have to build really quickly that trust and that momentum. Another set of individuals I worked with in the past, these are all diversity officers or facilitators. Um, as you are evolving your train of thought and your ideas, you do have to set aside funds, either for hiring a facilitator, and we have a list of about 33 of them throughout the country, or even hiring some people to help you through this thing. You have to, like I said, get support and definitely start changing those proportions, those numbers. I did say it's not a checklist. It is, for me, nobody's going to work for your organization unless the culture is there, unless they feel welcome. And so those are earlier steps. But then that goes hand in hand with this support mechanisms. So when there's diverse employees, when there's diverse board members, figure out a way. A lot of board members that are people of color maybe need extra assistance just to get to your events when events used to be in person, or even a stipend. They're just in a different situation. So we, I hope we all know the difference between equitable and equal. Um, and if not, definitely get back to me on it. It just needs a little bit of clarification where I don't mean that we're all given the same opportunities. We actually, some of us need different and a little bit more help just because of our own journey. And I'm sure people can um, uh, empathize with that. Other resources, other resources for diversifying. These are just a few of the logos of a few of our collaborators in our list of consultants. Okay, including the Leadership Trust. We can help you. We can work with it. Oh, somebody said I'm talking over Lisa. I'll be quiet.
Paco, I think um, I'm not quite. So let's see what's happening. Paco, I think you're fine. I'm also going to put in the chat the link
Okay,
to the great image around equity versus equality, so people can check that out. And I think you're good to keep going, Paco.
thank you. Okay, okay. So again, back to resources. You can join many networks. You can join webinars such as this. You can read publications. You can talk to frontline communities and groups. Um, I have worked with groups, small and large, where and my wife was as I was preparing this presentation said, give them real case studies. Okay, so there is a nonprofit. I'll probably just not name them so that their confidentiality is there. But believe me, it's a real organization. They're like, we don't have enough people of color in our board. We don't have enough staff of color in our board. How do we? What do we do? Well, okay, the first thing, of course, you recognize that you have that deficiency. Create a committee. They have created a committee. That committee has now created a plan. That plan has now been implemented. So fast forward, I've been working with this organization for over 15 months, and they have recruited board members, and they have recruited staff people, non-white colleagues. So it is possible in a relatively quick amount of time, especially now this group is based in DC, so they did have a wealth of talent pool right in their doorsteps. But also, one thing I wanted to make a comment is that I've heard all of the excuses also. When people say this is mission drift, when people say we don't have money, which are some of the two primary reasons, when people say we can't find those leaders, really they're all excuses. Really, because it's just the channels where you're advertising. Are you inviting them to your meetings or are you going to their meetings, right? Is it really mission drift? I mean, if you're an organization that is meant to protect the trees, don't you think that by including more than just white allies to protect the trees, you would protect more trees? That's a very simplistic answer. But again, I've heard all sorts of excuses, and none of them have stuck with me. This particular group on the top right, Aorta, very, very cool. It's a anti-oppression resource training alliance or something like that. Many of them, Skio, I can see their Visions group, Jedi Heart. There's just so many. Some of them in the Great Lakes area, some of them national. All of them a little bit different in terms of capacity of number of people, whether they do retreats in person, consulting. So if you need this information, I can also share it. More things. As you are working towards your diversity, then you start having some outward facing communication, some changes now at the organizational level that are transcending beyond the individual. And you're measuring these things, right? It's always good to double check on this. This particular images, these two images are from the Healing Our Waters Coalition. I'm part of the Equity Advisory and Action Committee, okay? Which, by the way, meets regularly with the board. And so we exchange points of view. We even decide on presentations. We decide on speakers. So we're an integral part of their board. And not all of us are board members to the Healing Our Waters, but a lot of us are advisors. And they are here in the Great Lakes. And finally, that audit that I mentioned really has to drill down to those putting money where your mouth is. If you are really interested in doing this, you have to dedicate time and money. So again, when people say we don't have the time, we don't have the money, if you don't make it a priority, then you're just saying that you want to do it, but you're only half-heartedly diving into it. It takes some time to work on it. More successes in terms of reading clubs, blogs, anti-oppression movements, top 3 pictures. The Arm in Arm campaign is a national movement to stop climate change. Not just people of color. It does involve a lot of folks. By the way, all my screenshots are usually when my Zoom call exceeds 20 people, then I take a screenshot. Then there's also the BIPOC climate leadership cohort in the bottom, a couple of more millennials organized by 350.org. Some of them are more informal. Bottom right is called the Home Jam. It's more about self-care, retreat. Again, moving from white supremacy culture to other forms of communication and camaraderie. Top right is Citizens Climate Lobby. A lot of these environmental groups and especially environmental justice organizations are organizing around climate change. I don't need to sell that to anybody here, I hope. Just as I'm closing, and I want to leave some time for questions, is that participated. This is another Leadership Trust member, top right, Colette Pichon Battle. She was a speaker for on June 15 for the movement for Black Lives Matter. At this Zoom call, we were over 1,000 people. We reached capacity. Actually, if you squint your eyes, you can see in the participants it says 1,000 there. And she invited Michael Bloom, this gentleman on the right, president of Sierra Club. Now, this guy really gets it, colleague of ours, Sierra Club. What can we do, right? And so recently he published something on the New York Times of tearing down our monuments. And this was his recommendations on equity. So again, recognize your history, challenge your base, and commit to structural change. And then the bottom Zoom call, you can see there also Michael in the third cell, second row. And beside him, Ramon Cruz, the first Hispanic board president of Sierra Club. Sierra Club being 128 years. Ramon Cruz, a member of Green Leadership Trust, got elected in July to serve on the board of the oldest environmental organization in the country. So we get it. We're making strides. on that picture is also Allison Chin. She was the first Asian American board president of that organization. So some groups are doing it, and there's definitely a lot of reading if you are interested from Sierra Club. These are our current organizations that have board members of color
Paco, thanks.
that are part
Hey,
of our
so
trust.
I've got a couple different
If
questions.
you have
One
any
is,
colleagues, if you yourself are
and then Rob, maybe if you can just put
you should also think
move
about
the
it
screen back for us.
our resources.
One
I
of
do
the
wanna
things that I was thinking about with
ask
going through this
you know,
process
I'll
is,
stop sharing so I
can
can
you
see
share some
the
success
chat
stories?
also,
So I
but
think about
any
the idea
questions
that,
or what
you know,
would be your complete
for people who are
steps
first thinking
that
about
you wanna
converting
take,
some land to a prairie or restoring an
given this
ecosystem,
information?
that
And the
they
last thing
it's
is,
helpful for them to
I
hear
thought this Zoom
some
call
stories of people who've gone
not
before
this one,
them
but Zoom
and what
calls,
the process is
these
like.
meetings.
And so,
Thank you.
I don't know if there's a story or two that you might be able to share of that kind of thing. So as people are thinking about embarking on something that might be new for them, and then another question that's come up is, what are some of the best practices for kind of nurturing that talent pipeline?
Um, so the story I alluded to that organization that was really intentional in how they created that committee, and that story I've seen it repeated several times. So again, when a group of individuals started talking and started putting their heads, and then found money to do this, I've seen it replicated time and time. Now, word of caution: it is a slow process. Like I said, from 2012 to now, in 8 years, we have only moved the needle 2%. Um, so it is through word of mouth that these networks keep growing. That again, the talent is there. So for recruiting, some organizations have junior boards, for example, and so people that are millennials or younger even are mentored through what board service means, and internships which are paid. I've done several internships back when I was younger that were not even paid. So again, putting resources to those small things that make it worthwhile. I just participated in a planning committee, and I just did it because, as you know, Lisa, I say yes to a lot of things. But then they came back to us and said, by the way, you planning committee are getting $250 for every call that we're in, and this is our fourth call. I'm like, what? I'm getting $1,000. I wasn't expecting it because we're not used to asking for that when you're trying to help somebody. But this particular organizer recognized our time was valuable and and went to the donor,
I
the
do remember
foundation, and
that.
said,
Yep.
I'm organizing this event, but I want to pay even my planners, not just self-care packages for the participants. But so those little things go a long way, especially right now. Um, so being able to think again equitably, I'm making this decision. Who is it impacting? Who was not at the
Paco,
table since the beginning?
Abby asks about,
Should we even have a table?
can you speak
Lisa
to
and I were
any
in a
kind
meeting
of
in Canada a few
anti-ableism,
years ago.
or how
I don't know if you
does
remember.
that show
We
up
took
in
away the
the
table
work that
so we
you
could
are
all
doing?
see eye to eye, right? We were seated around the First Nations group in Canada, so the Native American groups in Canada, First Nations.
Ableism.
We have to be in a
So
circle.
physical mobility.
There shouldn't be any barriers. So every time people say, who should be at the table, I'm like, we shouldn't even have a table. There shouldn't be anything in between us. We're all equal. We're all equal. We all have a bearing. Anti-ageism. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Um, yeah, this particular group I know also, they have, it's called the IDEA Committee, and the acronym is Inclusion, Equity, Diversity, and Access. So, um, Yeah, diversity, of course, is not just racial. It's sexual orientation, it's age, and it's also ability. So when you're thinking about these things, it really Green Leadership Trust was created with the lens of race, but it can apply. Although I'm not as strong or versed in some best practices for there, but really in essence, it's the big picture thinking of how you make these spaces accessible, how you make these opportunities. I don't know if people have read of the theory
Yeah,
of the
I think
curve effect.
it is amazing. I think
The curve
in
is
this
those
work, when you
on the
do really see
sidewalks,
the
those
ripple
dips
effects, and
that
so I
were
think of it
created
again.
so that
I love stacking
actually
this on top
handicapped
of
people
our
could
environmental
cross
work because the
street
ripple
walks.
effects are
Well,
just
but
so
now
huge in this.
bikers use them, people
Paco, a couple other questions.
taking strollers,
Um,
and even
one of
pedestrians to prevent
these,
a lot of jaywalking. So somebody
so
said
there
a famous
um, two different things. I want to go down one path, which is around the recruiting that you talked about, and so how do you? Brandon asks. So he oversees training programs for environmental restoration, and construction, and so he's been struggling to recruit people of color and women. And so, can you speak a little bit to that? So that I think is there. There definitely is a whole element in this work of tapping into maybe not your traditional networks. So maybe I'll ask that question and pause there and let you answer that, and then I'll ask another one.
Yeah, no, no, that's exactly the trick. When people come to us and say we're having hard time recruiting, um, then the hard time stems precisely because it is you're tapping on the wrong networks. There's the HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, that have a lot of professionals. There is definitely a lot of minority professional firms, be it construction, be it legal, be it financial advisors. There's a lot out there that I'm actually learning and networking with them. But there's I know I met a new one, Techerias. So the tech world and all these Latino millennials, they created this 501c3 and a coalition of new emerging Latinos in tech, and it's a play on word like taqueria, but it's tequeria. So they're really out there.
Oh, just coming off a mute there. Yeah, great, thanks. So it really is understanding the different networks there. I also want to point out that Carrie says the Conservation Trust for North Carolina has an awesome program using a diversity lens for all of their work with the mission of protecting nature. So something for us to check out and look at that. And then the other question, Paco, comes to how this has become really politicized right now. So advice for trying to implement JEDI, DEI at a government organization and getting accused of making it political. And so it really wasn't, but having the pushback and say, um, again, how do you approach conversations around diversity and inclusion with people who see the topic as adversarial or an attack? And so, any advice on that?
I would say the first thing would be to read the famous book White Fragility. That's what I would do. A lot of people uh, feel attacked um, because precisely the institutional systems are being challenged. It is definitely a confrontation, but it's more of the heart and of the intellect than an actual physical one, even though it may escalate in some cases. So, um, understanding that this country was formed out of colonialism, imperialism, and down downplaying certain races, moved to reservations or became slaves. And even nowadays, right? All the migrant workers there are mostly Hispanics. So these things are challenging, and these things do have a political base. The Hispanics are 32%, no, 32 million Hispanics will be voting in November or are eligible to vote. So we're the largest super minority for this coming election. So there's no way around it, especially with November being around the corner, that is not political. The thing is that it's really not just political. It is more just our way of life and it's our way of thinking and reacting. So if you can try and separate those two things, I think it'd be easier. Again, I have neighbors, I have family members, not mine from Mexico, but my political family, um, that still say no, there's no racism. No, I don't see race. I don't see, and I politely tell them that's because of your position of privilege. You would not have the same treatment on a dark alley with a hoodie that me or stuff like that. So it's just a matter of having those friendly intellectual conversations.
Yeah, and I do think, and then like you said in the very beginning, it's a journey. It's a personal journey, and for those of us who are white in this society here, we have had, and Emily even talked about the invisibility that she has as a white woman earlier in the chat. And so one of the quotes that I liked is the idea that, as people say, it's not my fault, or I don't see race or whatever, but the idea that it's not our fault. So let's get away from that. We were not the founders of this country. Our ancestors may have been. And like you said, it was built absolutely on white supremacy. So it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility now, here in 2020 and beyond, to be white allies and to embark on our own personal and institutional and neighborhood and community path on this journey, to really understand. And then another question. Yes, Abby, nice one. It's not our fault, but it's our fight. Exactly. And then Lori asks, maybe Paco, in our final minute here, let's see if we can do this relatively quickly in the next 60 seconds or so. But do you have any suggestions for collaboratives that are working to engage and help people in marginalized neighborhoods? They may be struggling to provide basic needs, and we expect them to manage their, come to a work day, or um, they don't do this. So any sense of quick 30-second advice on working in marginalized communities?
Yeah, these frontline communities are the ones that are most impacted by not just COVID, but environmental degradation. So definitely to reach out to them. Definitely hold your meetings sometimes at their place of work instead of yours, and other times have those incentives: babysitting, translation, stipends, meals. All of those tricks of the trade to facilitating an equitable and more inclusive participation is welcomed. Is welcomed. Um, One more other thing: use or connect with a local champion that can be your ambassador. Don't come as the stranger, as the outsider, to try and be the savior. Instead, work with one of them that knows your organization and that can be that bridge and convey what are their needs. I always go to a community, and I'm here to learn what are your needs, not to tell you what are your solutions. I want to hear what you need, and that's what we're going to prioritize.
Great, thanks. That's excellent advice. Paco, thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for your friendship and your colleagueness of mine. An honor to work together. So really appreciate that. It's the top of the hour, so we're going to need to draw it to a close here. I want to thank you all online for your participation as well. Really appreciate you being part of the network at large, and wonderful to be together with you all virtually. Um, I also want to remind you that your donations to the Stewardship Network are up to $250,000, are being matched dollar for dollar. So encourage you all, if you have not made a contribution, to make a contribution to the Stewardship Network. And I look forward to being with you again next month. And in the meantime, stay safe, be engaged, and let us know what we can do for you. Really appreciate all the work that you all do. Again, thanks, Paco.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everybody.